Hey fam, welcome back, or maybe you should welcome me back since I'm the one that's been MIA. Life has been a little crazy, lots of changes, but most of them good. And so I wanted to share some with you. This one that I would like to talk about is very near and dear to my heart. And we're gonna start with hair. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I took off the wig because I chopped all my hair off. Mostly I was wearing the wig because I thought it was fun and like an alter ego or my YouTube persona. And I just have always experimented with extensions and wigs, and it's just kind of been a thing for me almost most of my life, I would say. But I chopped off all my hair and I adjusted, but I actually had to chop off my hair for health reasons, or not for health reasons, but because of health reasons. So I'm going to share a little bit about that testimony and how this all came about. It started way back in 2012. I was rollerblading with my kids, and I think my son was behind me and my daughter was like in front of me, and every time she went over a speed bump, she would do this like cute little move. Or no, maybe she was behind me and my son was in front of me. Why did I turn around? It's been so long, now I can't remember. But I remember my daughter doing this cute little move every time she went over a speed bump. Yeah, I think she was behind me, my son was in front of me. So I went to like turn around to watch her go over the next speed bump, and I hit a pine cone and like fell, but like I like caught myself. I like landed on my elbow, but I tweaked my neck somehow, or I fell and like blah, whatever. I'm not really sure. All I know is that when I got back up, my neck was super stiff to where like I couldn't turn it. I was like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. And my daughter had to actually like take my hand and pull me back to the house. And so I get back to the house, I lay on an ice pack, basically like fell asleep on the floor laying on this ice pack. I must have gotten up and moved in the middle of the night, because in the morning I like remember waking up on the couch, and when I went to sit up, I heard it like a pop or a crack, and I got really scared. So I like immediately laid back down and didn't move. I picked up my phone and called my friend who is a nurse, and I just kind of like told her what happened. And she was like, I don't think anything's broken, but since your neck is such an intricate part of your body, if something were off, you wouldn't want it to heal improperly, so you should really go get it checked out. So then I had my mom take me to the ER. I go to the ER, and because I couldn't drop the shoulder to the arm that I landed on down low enough, they couldn't see one of my vertebrae. And so they had to also do a CT scan. So I get the CT scan, I get the x-ray and the CT scan. They take me back to my room. I'm chilling. The doctor comes in and it explains everything. It says like, you're fine, it's just a sprain. No big deal. Wear the little foam thing. Don't turn your head for 2 weeks. So probably don't drive a car for a week. And then the nurse is gonna check you out and everything will be fine. So I like signed all the documents. I'm like literally getting ready to leave, have all my clothes, really about to walk out of the door. And then the nurse comes running in and she's like, oh my gosh, thank gosh, you're still here. Wait. The doctor needs to talk to you again. Like, don't go anywhere. And so I'm like, that's not normal. So me and my mom were just kind of like looking at each other and, whatever. So he comes back in and he said, what? We looked at the CT scan and we saw nodules in your thyroid. And typically that's a little normal, especially more so for females, but yours are of a significant size. So we're recommending that you go to your primary care doctor and have them schedule you for an ultrasound. So, I leave, I'm like feeling like what just happened, what's going on. So I immediately call my primary, I go see him, he scheduled me for the ultrasound. So he explains to me basically like they do the ultrasound of your thyroid, and depending on the shade of gray that they find within the thyroid or within the nodules in the thyroid, that that will determine whether or not they feel the need to do a biopsy. So now for nodules in the thyroid, like I mentioned, the doctor said it's predominantly more common in women. And they say up to 60% of all women have a mass of some sort in their thyroid. And most women don't even know. And it's so common that a lot of times they'll consider them inoperable and they won't do anything, even though it's like throwing off your hormone secretion from your thyroid. Don't get me started. But so I do the ultrasound. I'm expecting, I'm in my mid 20s at the time. I'm expecting everything to be fine because, nothing ever happens. Nobody ever expects anything to happen to them, right? So they do the ultrasound and then come back and say, the doctor wants to do a biopsy. Y'all, I hate needles. Hate needles so much, and I'm also very inquisitive. So they schedule me for the biopsy. I go in and they prep me and I'm like laying on the table, and the doctor comes in and I'm asking him any and every question I can think of. Like, I couldn't tell you what I asked him, but at first when I started asking him questions, he seemed a little I don't know, not irritated, but for him it was probably just another day in the office, jab another needle in somebody's throat, it's fine. And so I think he was a little whatever, let's get this over with. But then I kept asking more and more and more and more and more and more questions. I swear, I think I asked him questions for a good 10 to 15 minutes. And at some point I remember things shifting to where he noticed that I was extremely nervous, and he started being a lot more attentive and patient. And then after I ran out of questions, he just kind of was okay, so he explained the process. He said, I'm going to take a needle and I'm going to stick it into your throat, and then I'm going to, remove some of the fluid so that we can biopsy that. And I have to do that 4 times. Now, when the needle's in, right before I stick the needle in, I'm gonna say, don't talk, don't swallow. And then when it goes in, you don't talk, you don't swallow. Do you understand? You cannot talk or swallow while the needle's in. And then I'm going to pull it back out, and then I'm gonna say, you can talk now. And that's when you can talk or you can swallow. And then you can ask me whatever questions you want, but we're gonna get started now, okay? And I was like, okay. So he sticks the first needle in, or he like gets ready and he looks at me and he says, don't talk, don't swallow. And I said, and he sticks the needle in and he takes it out and he said, okay, you can talk and you can swallow. And I said, like one little tear just went running down my face. And he was like, do you have any questions? And I was like, he was like, do you want me to hurry up? And I said, so he did that 3 more times. Stick the needle in, take the fluid out, don't talk, don't swallow. I swear, that was like probably the most traumatic because I was awake and like, even though they numbed the area, like you still feel that it's happening. So like in my head, I knew that there was this huge long needle going into my throat. Oh. Anyways, so then again, you know, I'm expecting it to come back and be like, oh, nothing's wrong, you're totally fine, we're tripping. No, I go see the surgeon and he sits me down and he said, you have a 5% chance of not having cancer. And I want to remove your entire thyroid. I love to sing. I'm sure you are aware if you follow me on Instagram. And that was like the first thing I thought of was your thyroid is attached to your vocal cord. Like, what is that going to do to my vocal cord? So like, that was one of my first questions. I was like, I sing at church. What's going to happen to that? And he said, well, you have a 2% chance for each vocal cord because you have 2. So altogether 4% chance of talking like this for the rest of your life. So again, I break down into tears. So not only do I have cancer, but I have at least a 4% chance of sounding like someone who like smoked cigarettes for 80 years for the rest of my life, possibly never singing again. And I just remember thinking, I'm doomed and I'm gonna die. Like cancer, you hear cancer and you just, I don't know about anybody else, but I just automatically thought I was gonna die. And so of course I'm in there, I'm crying, and he goes, you know, if you were locked in a room and you had to pick one cancer, any cancer, before you could leave the room, this is the cancer you would want. And if everybody, male or female, lived long enough, eventually everybody would get thyroid cancer. Looking back on that now, I'm like, why was that supposed to make me feel better? And now I'm just horrified over the fact that if every single person on the planet lived long enough, eventually they would develop thyroid cancer. Why is that normal? Why is that the world we live in? Why is convenience and money so much more important than our own, like, human race? I really don't understand that, because cancer comes from environmental things that we have created over time, things that we use to, like, you know, make living more convenient. But is it more convenient? Because it's killing us. Like, if we were all still into agriculture and farming our own food and like doing physical labor, we wouldn't be so fat and we would be a lot healthier. We would be eating food that was actually good for us, and we'd be physically fit because we would be physically working all day. But now people don't want to physically work all day. Not to say that there's anything wrong with not wanting to do manual labor. Like, I completely get it. I have a desk job. But it's just our mindset. Like, I feel like our mindset sometimes is backwards, and like we're trying to make all of these things more convenient without thinking about the long term. And if we are thinking about the long term, like, how? How, Sway? Because we're messing this world up. We are the problem. But anyways, back to my story. So I really wanted to get a second opinion, but to be very honest and transparent, I couldn't wait. I called the UW because they have a really well-known, really amazing medical program. And so I called them and told them the situation and told them that I wanted a second opinion, and they said that I would have essentially had to start the entire process over. I would have had to do the ultrasound again, I would have had to do the biopsy again, and then with them, they wouldn't have gone in and like removed my entire thyroid. They said that they would go in and it wouldn't be like a seasoned doctor doing it. A supervised student would have been doing a surgery, and they would have opened me up and done an additional biopsy while I was on the table before closing me back up. And based on that biopsy, they would have determined whether or not they needed to take it or not take it, or take a portion, or whatever. Because I actually had a large nodule on one side and like a smaller nodule on the other. So my original surgeon said the reason why he wanted to take the whole thing was because whatever was in the larger one that they biopsied, that eventually it would have gotten into the smaller one, and they would have had to like gone back in at some point of my life and taken it out anyways. So he wanted to take the whole thing, whereas the UW doctor wanted to start the process over and do a biopsy while I was opened up on the table and then make a determination. So I wouldn't even have been awake to give any type of like, I'm okay with that, I'm not okay with that. They would have just like basically had to make a judgment call while I was opened up on the table. So all of that, I just really was not comfortable with it. In retrospect, it would have been the better option. But so part of me sharing this story is to encourage people to get multiple opinions, especially for big things like that. Don't ever just take one doctor's word. And so one of the other ridiculous things was I Googled my first surgeon, my surgeon that actually removed my thyroid. I Googled him before I met with him, and I saw that he was like prior military and that he did like over 300 of these surgeries a year. I didn't find anything necessarily bad on him, but I thought that was very odd that he's done an absorbent amount of thyroid removals every year, because surgeons get paid by their surgery. So if somebody doesn't have a surgery, they're technically not getting paid. And something about him, being a prior military doctor, I was just like, I've heard bad things. I've heard terrible things from service members about their education and their skill levels. So I did have a bad taste in my mouth. And when I met him and was like, I'm jumping all over the place here now, but at the point where he was like telling me I only had a 5% chance of having cancer, or of not having cancer, I mentioned that I Googled him, and he was like, what did you find? Like, he was like nervous. And then when I told him what I found, and I can't remember what his response was, but I just remember at some point in the exchange, I commented and I was like, that's right, because this is still a business, isn't it? And I almost feel like that's why he took my thyroid. I know I'm tripping, but you guys, they scheduled the surgery. I go in for my surgery. Before my surgery, I'm bawling. Like bawling. I cannot fathom going through this and knowing that the thyroid is an essential organ for life. Like if you don't have a functioning thyroid, your thyroid tells all of your other organs how much to function. So if you don't have a thyroid doing that, eventually all of your internal organs shut down. You slip into a coma and die. So if you have your thyroid removed, you have to go on like a thyroid replacement therapy. It's essentially a pill that you take every morning, almost like taking a birth control. Like you have to take it at the same time every day, or about the same time. The time frame is not as strict as birth control, but that's what I like had to tell myself, even though I've never taken birth control and I don't feel I've never felt comfortable taking it. I tried for like a couple weeks and I just couldn't, because I don't like taking like unnatural hormones and stuff. And so I was like, but to make myself feel better, I tried telling myself like, it's not a big deal. Like you just take one little pill every day for the rest of your life that you're dependent on for your life. And I would just get so overwhelmed. So I was just a mess. And even like leading up to the surgery, I was a mess. I kept having these moments where I would be at work and all of a sudden I would just freeze. And I would stare off into space. And I would think about how I was gonna die. And what was gonna happen to my kids, and like all of these thoughts. And by the time I would get to my mom's house to pick up my kids, I would literally just barely make it into her bedroom and like shut her door and like fall apart in her arms, because I didn't at the time, like I wasn't telling my kids what was going on. They didn't know, so I would like hide it from them. So I would only break down like in my mom's room behind closed doors in her arms, like literally like a baby in my mom's arms. And the crazy part is, it's like normally my mom is the frantic one of the family. Like she's just normally like the more emotional person. And every time I would break down, she would just be like, I don't know. I don't know why I feel the way I do, but I just know that everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. And like she would just keep saying that. And like she would pray over me and just like, I just feel like the Holy Spirit's telling me everything's gonna be okay, Jess, you're gonna be okay. And I would be like bawling my eyes out. I don't know if you've ever like experienced any like near-death experience, or like had something happen kind of like this, where a doctor gave you some bad news and you just thought you were gonna die, but like something happens in your brain when you think you're going to die, when you think it's inevitable and it's coming soon. There's a shift. And that is actually my second like experience where I thought I might die. But the first experience is a whole nother story. So, but yeah, you definitely start looking at life a lot differently. But anyways, so my mom was my rock, and I am positive, without a doubt, that her faith is what got me through, what healed me, all of that, because I was severely lacking in that moment. And you have to love the people around you and have good people around you, so that in moments in life when your faith fails, because it will, life gets rough, it's inevitable, you need people around you. And if you had have asked me if I ever thought that my mom would have been that person in that moment, I never would have guessed. But my mom is a woman of faith, and she loves Jesus with all her heart. She always has. But like anybody else, she's human, and she's had her ups and downs, and she'll be the first one to tell you, like, you know, she is extremely human. But God always works everything out. So her faith is what healed me. I go through the surgery. I wake up. Oh my gosh. When I woke up from the surgery, I don't know what they put in that anesthesia, but like I was still panicked. Like I woke up, I went to sleep panicked, and I woke up panicked, and like I couldn't talk. So I remember like opening my eyes, and there was like this male nurse standing over me, and he was like saying words to me. I don't really remember what he was saying. Something calming, or like telling me like how I was doing, that the surgery went well, you know, like normal hospital talk. But I remembered him like turning away from me, and I think he might have said like he'll be right back. And I like just panicked, and I like grabbed his arm, and I was like, and he was like, you don't want me to leave? And I was like, and I was just like crying. I did not want to be left alone. I was so scared. Oh my gosh. But then, so I go into like wherever they put you to like recover. They like took me into my room eventually. That nurse never left me. He was so sweet. But I'm like recovering. I think I was in there for a couple of days, maybe like 2 or 3. I can't remember. Not a whole week, just a few days. But after I could like start like whisper talking, I remember them coming back in, and they were like, so we got the information back from, we did another biopsy after we removed it, and we got the results back. You don't have cancer. So y'all just stole my thyroid? I literally asked if I could have it back. I was like, can I have my thyroid back then? Because I didn't want y'all to take it in the first place. And they were like, it doesn't work like that. Oh my gosh. In the moment, I was still just so worked up and so emotional and so angry. And my mom was so amazing. She was like, Jess, God healed you. Don't you remember what they said? They said you only had a 5% chance of not having cancer. And then they come back and tell you you don't have cancer. God healed you. So, I said all that to say, when you don't have a thyroid, it can, well, okay, anytime your thyroid is off, it affects your hair. So there's something called hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. And then there's people who just don't have a thyroid. So when your levels are off, then it can severely thin your hair out. Now, I'm not positive if it was all due to my thyroid or if it also had to do with the severe amount of stress that I went through during COVID. I took it really hard. and I feel like I'm still recovering. But my hair thinned out so much, and it was so weird because it wasn't just like falling out in patches. I didn't have any bald spots. It was like if I went like this, like from like here up was just like almost transparent, like gone, like super thin. And then originally I thought that like maybe I had just severely damaged my hair to the point where it was just breaking off at a certain point, and it was all my fault. But I found a great hairdresser. She was highly recommended by someone who had been going to her for several years and who had very damaged hair, naturally thinner hair, and then damaged. So she helped her restore her hair. So I went to her, and she starts like touching my hair and like looking at everything, and she was like, your hair's not damaged. So what's going on? And so then I ended up having to tell her that, you know, it could possibly be my thyroid, but I hadn't been to the doctors in a while. And when you don't have a thyroid, it's supposed to be like, it's a lot easier to regulate. Like, you don't have to stay on top of it the same way you do if you like still had a portion of your thyroid, because when you have a portion of your thyroid left, your body can still like fluctuate in hormone levels. So you like constantly have to be playing like, what's that? Tetris. Is it Tetris? The one with the little things that come down and you have to like match them to like make everything flat. Anyways, it's like this constant guessing game, and when you deal with fluctuations like that. So when you don't have a thyroid, like you're just supposed to get like yearly routinely checked for your levels and everything. But during COVID, I just didn't. So I think I went like 2 years without getting mine checked, which not good. But so it very well could have like been off, or I don't know, who knows what was going on, but that's what happened. And so I chopped it off because she was like, well, everything down below is healthier. And she was like, and you have like all these baby hairs all throughout your head. So whatever happened, whether it was a combination of like my thyroid and stress, or just my thyroid, my hair was breaking off. And so when I chopped it all off the first time, because this is actually the second cut, it took me like a week to love it. But after a week, I honestly did love it. This time, I'm probably not going to love it. Like, I like it. I'm comfortable with it. But I think all I wanted was just a shorter version of the first haircut that I got. And I'm pretty sure there was a little miscommunication on my part. But I still really enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun having this haircut, and my hair is going to grow back a lot healthier. And so I'm super excited about the journey of like growing it out from here and seeing what that looks like. And now it's all sticking up funny in the back because I have 2 cowlicks in the back of my head. But anyways, so that's my hair story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to this healthy hair journey, and advocate for yourself. Don't do what I did and freak out and like get impatient and not get the second opinion. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion, get a fourth opinion, get as many opinions as you want. Because to be honest, like, the medical field doesn't actually know what they're doing. There's 2 fields that don't know what they're doing at all. The medical field and the legal field. That's why it's called practicing medicine and practicing law. So Like those two areas, like there's so much that we don't know yet, that we haven't discovered, or that, to be honest, like traditional doctors just get lazy and there's a default diagnosis, so they just slap that on you and send you home. And here you are thinking that that's, you know, your diagnosis, your prescribed whatever. And I don't want to say a lot of times, because I don't want to like generalize, because we all have different experiences. I'm sure there are a lot of amazing doctors out there. I have not met one. So if you have, please pass along their information. But I was also told that I'm gluten intolerant by a rheumatoid specialist. So not just a regular doctor, a specialist told me that I was gluten intolerant. And I kept complaining about specific issues, and my primary care doctor would like run out of things, and then I would switch primaries, and I was just trying to find a doctor who would legitimately help, because every time they would like try to give me a diagnosis or say something, they would always like, okay, so you're like, they just prescribed me something for like my complaints. I'm like, but why is this happening? Like, what is the root cause? Because in my brain, I'm like, if I can find the root cause, I know like what not to do, or what to do to fix it. Why is that such a hard question for any of my doctors to answer? I don't know. So I didn't give up, and my next story will be about how I discovered that I am not gluten intolerant after 5 years. Because I didn't give up, and that is also a crazy story. So I'm excited to share that one with you next week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and that you will advocate for yourself when it comes to your own health, because you deserve to feel great, you deserve to be healthy, you deserve to have a comfortable, happy life. Until next time.
Yeah, maybe this just isn't the time. And, you know, luckily for you, like I said, you have a beautiful face. So, I mean, that really does help. It plays a huge role on whether or not this is going to look good or not.